All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here, talking real music in real time for real people just like you and just like me. So, the never ending saga of Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham, as Stevie Nicks in People magazine talking about how giving the ultimatum to Lindsey Buckingham is nothing more than revisionist history. She's been saying this now for at least a few months. She says, I fired myself. How did she fire herself? She was still in the band. So I'm confused. Again, people like Stevie Nicks, they talk in opposites, like it becomes opposite day. No, I fired myself. It was me. I wasn't there. I wasn't on stage with Neil Finn creating all of that casual chemistry. Remember that? That article to this day. And then the other article where the woman is trying to, blame Lindsey Buckingham for all the problems in the band. And she writes that I had to spend so much extra money, like babysitting money, to buy the Tusk album. And I blame Lindsey Buckingham for that because all of his crazy music showed up and made it into a double album. I will agree with the fact that I think they should have made Tusk into a single album and just kept the best material they had. The Lindsey stuff should have been put on a solo album because he was trying to kind of answer the punk and new wave movement out there. And it was pretty experimental stuff. And I'm not really that fond of the material. Some people will disagree with me. But when Lindsey is trying to write a good pop and a good rock song, nobody's better than him. But he loses focus. He wants to be experimental. He wants to push the envelope. He stated over and over again that he was basically trying to rebel against what happened with Rumors, which is, one of the great albums of all time. Personally, my favorite Fleetwood Mac album is that White album where they all got together for the first time, where you had Say You Love Me and Rhiannon and that whole thing from start to finish. Warm Ways. Christine McVie is so good on that record. She is just... It's weird because she kind of came into her own as a songwriter, and these two show up. And by the way, they're a package deal. All this stuff where Stevie Nicks blames Lindsey Buckingham for all of her problems, she has to realize, or at least acknowledge, that he insisted that she be in the band because they were just looking for a guitar player. Bob Welch was out or leaving, and they heard the Buckingham Nicks album and they liked what Lindsey was doing on that record. And they didn't have interest in another female singer. They already had one. And Lindsey insisted, hey, we're a package deal. And that's the true story. And they accepted the deal. They said, okay, fine. And they made room, and Stevie was at her peak creatively, at least on that first album, and then on Rumors. And then, sporadically, she put songs out there that were pretty good that I think got a lot of improvement and help from the production and the suggestions of Lindsey Buckingham. And you can kind of see over the years that I think she resented that he would take her material and turn it into something better. And that's what a good producer, arranger, writer, musician, somebody who just hears music differently and knows, hey, this is a good song, but we can maybe do this. And if the album has a certain sound, we want to make that song kind of fit in with this material on this record. Tango in the Night would be a great example of that. But quite honestly, this feud continues because Stevie Nicks puts things out there like, oh, it was me. I quit Fleetwood Mac, but yet you were still there. And there was no ultimatum. I did not give him an ultimatum. Now, that's a convenient thing to say because technically she's correct, and I'll explain. Mick Fleetwood said at one point that there was no ultimatum from the band given to Lindsey Buckingham. That technically is true. It was the phone call that Lindsey Buckingham describes from Irving Azoff. And my translation of the phone call is something like this. Hey, Lindsey, what are you doing? What's going on? I mean, Stevie, she's really mad at you. This is our cash cow. This is the golden goose that lays golden eggs every time you guys go out on tour. WTF, what did you do? She's really mad. I think you've really done it this time. I don't think she's going to forgive you. And it's either you or her. And at that point, Azoff had already made the decision. It was her over Lindsey. So everybody can say, oh, it was this person's fault. No, Azoff is a businessman. He looks at the image of the group. He knows that Stevie Nicks as a solo artist is a much bigger deal to the general population. I'm not saying she's a better solo artist than Lindsey Buckingham, but she's more well-known. She's charted more songs. Her catalog, at least her radio catalog, is far more impressive than that of Lindsey Buckingham. Some of that is Lindsey's doing because Lindsey tends to go off and not want to be, Mr. Pop songwriter. And of course, so many years have gone by where even when he comes out with an album that's very accessible, like the one he released last year, everybody's going to ignore it. Nobody really cares anymore other than the hardcore fans. And you're not going to create a new radio canon for today's listener because, again, radio doesn't care. Radio is thinking, yeah, we'll interview Lindsey Buckingham and then we'll play a song off of Rumors. No, they're not going to play anything off of his brand new album. That amazing Buckingham McVie album got ignored, and that was like, Fleetwood Mac 3.0. That was fantastic, except, Stevie wasn't writing songs at the time. So the ultimatum doesn't come from the band. It comes from management, right? These people have publicists, they've got agents, they've got this, they've got handlers, they've got assistants. In the case of Stevie Nicks, it's legendary that she's always had, one very important assistant, and that's how she kind of filters everything and gets her information. According to Lindsey, she tends to be kind of a loner. Another interesting part of this, and I haven't talked about this in a while, but I had some contacts with Kristen Buckingham for a little while on social media. And she described it as a ghosting. Like they were all friends. They were hanging out, not every day, but they would go over to each other's houses. John McVie at the time, I think, lived right down the road from Lindsey Buckingham. And Kristen Buckingham said everybody just pretended he didn't exist. It was just bizarre. They went from being friends to then not even being friends. And to me, that just shows that this came from management, and management said, don't have any more contact with him. We'll deal with the situation. And they even settled out of court the financial end of it. They settled with Lindsey Buckingham, and he deserved to have something because he wanted to go out on tour. And again, Stevie Nicks was saying that, oh, we've got one guy here who doesn't want to go out on tour. And we just decided we wanted to go out on tour as a band. And imagine being Mike Campbell, listening to that, sitting there going, man, this is just a bad situation I've got myself into. And Neil Finn, too, who's this mild-mannered guy from New Zealand or Australia or whatever. And I'm thinking to myself, this just is not the Fleetwood Mac template. We need that tension. We need that crazy tension in the room. That's what makes it interesting at this stage. And I find it kind of curious that everybody's going back and forth in the media. Yeah, Lindsey is critiquing Stevie, saying some things that are uncomfortable for Stevie Nicks fans to hear. And then Stevie Nicks is coming back with her own version of the story. And the two stories have nothing really to do with one another. And we all know that Irving Azoff was the one that facilitated the breakup. And the band can just go like this and wipe their hands and say, no, wasn't us. And Lindsey's out there trying to sort of build a bridge. At the same time, he's still critiquing her, Stevie Nicks, and saying that, look, she wasn't very creative. She didn't have songs. She seemed a bit self-absorbed, which, duh. If you go back to Music Cares, which apparently was the catalyst for all of this, look at it this way. Band members making fun of her while she's giving this super long-winded, never-ending speech, which I think she duplicated at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame when she was inducted ahead of so many other more deserving female solo artists at the time. She did this. I mean, in other words, she almost gave the same speech, and it just went on. It was rambling, and I would have rolled my eyes too if I were there. I'm like, come on, lady, get off the stage. But she took it as, a dig or, something real mean-spirited. And these people have been around each other for like, what, 5 decades or something? And you would think to yourself, okay, they're going to make fun of me. Ha ha. Laugh at yourself a little bit. But apparently her skin, even with her bandmates, is rather thin. And I think everybody there would say that they've got her back. Even Lindsey would say that. So I think Lindsey is more magnanimous, if that's the right word. And Stevie Nicks seems to be a bit like, I'm the victim, and, this is all because of him, and I can't forgive that stuff. I mean, look, you guys were touring together when your relationship, your physical, real relationship, broke up. So all these years later, it's kind of weird that you can't forgive him for a smirk or rolling his eyes or being creative, because that's the other issue here. Lindsey Buckingham has done this psych exam, which I know psychology isn't a thing. It's a shiny theory. So, but just humor me here. All right. So he's done the psych evaluation on Stevie Nicks, and it turns out that, she hasn't had a family. She talks about how the one child she should have had was a good thing that she didn't have that child, because it would have messed up her career, would have messed up Fleetwood Mac. Like, she didn't have millions of dollars that she could have used to hire the best people to take care of that child. I think there was something obviously more to that. Substance abuse at the time, maybe expensive habits, and maybe you couldn't afford to have the child because some other things were going on there. And eventually, she got past all of those expensive habits she had, but maybe there's this sense of emptiness or remorse, whereas Lindsey Buckingham went on to have a family and had a wife that stuck by him. Now, I think he and his wife are still separated, last time I heard. So I don't know. If I'm Kristen, I'm probably thinking, really, I've got to live through this drama now. I don't know. That might not have anything to do with what they're not together about, but it's got to be a difficult situation when you see your husband being attacked and maligned. And she basically said, they ghosted him. And she knows firsthand how Fleetwood Mac treated him after Azoff said, it's either you or her, and I've already decided to go with her because she's the star of the show and you're not. And we're just going to go down that road and bring in the Peter Green material over here, bring in the Tom Petty material over there, crowded house. So anyway, that's why Lindsey Buckingham says that it started to be a cover band. The Peter Green material, technically it's not a cover band if you're performing the Peter Green music. However, there's nobody there really to do justice to the Peter Green music in the band. That's almost like another band. That was in another era. And your casual, rumors-based Fleetwood Mac fan is not even going to know, any of the Peter Green material. They're going to think, well, didn't Santana do that song? That's about what they're going to come to that. They're just going to, that's where they're at, and they're not going to go back into the late 1960s. Was it a good idea? It's always a good idea to pay tribute to Peter Green, but I don't know. I think it fell flat because there's really no current relationship. I think Lindsey Buckingham, of all people, probably understood Peter Green's legacy better than everybody else, other than Mick Fleetwood and John McVie. All right, so those three guys, but Lindsey wasn't there. Anyway, folks, long-winded video here just to say that, you know, this saga continues. I don't know if this band will ever get back together again. I'm sure Azoff has a plan for a massive reunion tour. I don't think Christine McVie or John McVie want to do this anymore. Stevie Nicks has gigs booked in 2022, basically like festival dates and probably more solo gigs. I haven't really checked on her website, but it appears that she has no plans on touring with anybody but her own band. So that could change. We don't know. There could be a whole big bag of money on the table for everybody, but I don't know if that's an incentive at this point. But we shall see. Never say never with Fleetwood Mac. That's the crazy thing about it. Even with all this stuff going on, what it does is it sets up things for a grand reunion, something that'll be once in a lifetime, where ticket prices will be through the roof and people will go basically just to see Stevie and Lindsey on stage together again. And who knows, maybe they'll hug and make up and it'll be one of the greatest moments in rock history, even though at that point it's not about the music. It's just about the drama. And people love drama. Let's just face it, they love it.